Welcome to the BEASTwriter podcast. I am your host, Ryan Sakamoto, and tonight we are going to be discussing the controversial four-way trade involving quarterback Deshaun Watson. Now, before we get started, this trade I would say is unrealistic, and now it's up to me to pick up the pieces because I cover all 32 NFL teams, and you guys follow me, a lot of you, for my 49ers content. So, without further ado, we're going to get into it, and yeah, that's pretty much it. But before we go ahead and start, I just want to thank each and every one of you for subscribing to my YouTube channel. I know it's going like this, and I wouldn't be here without you, so thank you. If you're new to subscribing to my channel, please turn on the bell notification so you get notified when I go live or when I upload content. Obviously, spread the word to all your family and friends as well, as we stay up to date in all things Beast in real time. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the trade. Let's get into it. Without further ado, dun, 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 here we go. All right. This is a four-way deal like a game of Madden. Like, it's very unrealistic, but hey, you gotta give it up for Nick Wright for getting this out there. All four fan bases are talking about it. Is it realistic? Absolutely not, for a number of different reasons, but does it get views? Absolutely. And when you're in the NFL media, I mean, sometimes whether it's positive or negative, engagement is always good, and we know how that works out, right? So 49ers Twitter is going berserk asking me and hyping this up on this potential trade. It's really funny to think about, but I'm going to discuss it because I know it'll get views, and I'm not the one that made this trade. It was Nick Wright from Fox Sports. So you can't get mad at me. I'm just analyzing his four-way trade, and we're just going to get down to it. All right, so the 49ers get Deshaun Watson. Woohoo, yeah. Go Niners, right? Faithful to the Bay, baby. All right. But in return of getting Deshaun Watson, they're giving up Jimmy Garoppolo, edge Nick Bosa, and 2 first-round picks. That goes to the Seattle Seahawks. I'm trying to keep a straight face because this trade's so hilarious. And then, bear with me for a second. And then, in return of doing that, the Seahawks give up Russell Wilson to the New York Jets. Okay? And then the Texans get Sam Darnold, 3 first-round draft picks, and a additional second-rounder from the New York Jets. Yeah. Let me just, if you're following me here, it's funny. I'll try to keep a straight face as I do this four-way trade again. So Nick Wright said the 49ers get Deshaun Watson, but in return they give up Nick Bosa, Jimmy Garoppolo, 2 first-round picks. That gets shipped out to the Seattle Seahawks up north. And then in return of doing that, Seahawks then swing Russell Wilson to the New York Jets. And the Houston Texans get Sam Darnold, 3 first-round draft picks, and a second-rounder. Now, is this realistic? Absolutely not. Is this going to happen? This isn't NBA. No, it's not going to happen. But it's something, again, that gets views. Obviously, you guys want my feedback on it, and I'm going to break it down as to why. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about that. Why would the Jets make this move? Let that sink in. Why would Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas even consider making this move? They already hold 2 first-round draft picks, so they hold draft flexibility. Why would they want to give that up and trade for an aging player who, although was playing at an MVP caliber year, when there's so many needs across the board? Like, even if you get a guy like Russell Wilson, you're not going to be a Super Bowl contender because the Jets are not 1 or 2 players away from making a run at it. So it really makes zero sense when you're setting the franchise back 5 years to pick up a guy like Russell Wilson when the window doesn't fit the value. Like, it just doesn't make sense. And I'm not throwing shit at Nick Wright. This is just this is my analysis. I can analyze how I want to do it, and you guys would agree. Like, if you don't agree, then there's something wrong. Like, it's kind of common sense. Like, why would the Jets make this move when they hold 2 first-round draft picks in the upcoming draft? They have draft flexibility and draft position at number 2. They have their choice of any quarterback outside of Trevor Lawrence. So why, if they choose not to go with Sam Darnold, why would they even consider this when there's so many other needs that the team has? Now, if you're a team that's 1 or 2 players away, then yeah, you go ahead and make this move. But the Jets are 22 players away. it doesn't make sense, bro. It don't make sense. Okay. So aside from that, let's peel back another layer of the onion to get to the core. Furthermore, why would the Seahawks want Jimmy G over Russell Wilson? Why would the Seahawks be willing to give up Russell Wilson for Jimmy Garoppolo? Does that make sense? Okay, the kicker is they get Nick Bosa, right? They need a pass rush because we don't know what's going to happen with Carlos Dunlap. And I believe that the team would save $14.1 million if they wiped him clean off the books. And so they're back at square one after trading for him as a half-year rental from the Cincinnati Bengals. I get it, okay? I already did the research on that, right? But with that being said, does it make sense realistically to trade within the division? Like, why would you trade Nick Bosa within the division and Jimmy Garoppolo where you have to face him 2 times a year? It just, to me, it just doesn't make sense. And also, by making this deal, San Francisco is no longer a Super Bowl contender, even with Deshaun Watson. Now I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on in this podcast, but this sets San Francisco back 3 to 5 years when you think about it, right? Because even with Watson, right, or whoever's behind center, how does the offensive line look? We don't know what's going on with Trent Williams. We know the right side needs help. And is McGlinchey the answer at right tackle? I mean, who knows, right? How about Laken Tomlinson? Is he the long-term answer? What about center? Weston Richburg's all but gone. I think he's a cap casualty. DeForest obviously gone. Jason Verrett, is he going to be re-signed? What about Kerry Hyder Jr.? Where's the money going to come from? Are you going to wait till June 1 to cut DeFord? By then, free agency has already been dried up. So the 15.1 whatever million you're saving from dumping DeFord's contract, you're already at a loss, bro. And then on top of that, you gave up your best edge rusher in Nick Bosa, so you're back at square one from a pass rushing standpoint. How does that even make sense? You'd rather just keep Jimmy Garoppolo, or you hold the number 12 overall pick. You rather use that draft capital to try to trade up for a Zach Wilson. That's what you should try to do. Why would you want to give up so much draft capital? 2 first-round draft picks. Really, bro? 2 first-round draft picks and Nick Bosa and Jimmy Garoppolo for one player, Deshaun Watson? Yeah, is he a top 5 franchise quarterback? Absolutely. But does he make them instant Super Bowl contenders? Absolutely not. I'm going to talk about that a little in detail later. All right? That's why it's a bad move, right? So it doesn't matter who's behind center because, if you trade Bosa or Fred Warner, the foundational players, homegrown talent, homegrown all-pro talent. Bosa is going to be an all-pro at some point in his career. And with that being said, didn't we learn from the Buckner deal? I mean, didn't we learn last year, which I said on my podcast right after the trade was made, that the Super Bowl window closed right after Buckner was traded? I said that. I said, watch, so they're going to ease the blow of losing DeForest Buckner, reach for Javon Kinlaw, which they did, instead of taking Tristan Wirfs. This is all in real time. Go back to my very first podcast, and I'll repost it on my Twitter. I said this. And in real time, boom, what happens in hindsight turns out to be true. So, I also put out a tweet earlier this afternoon before hitting the gym. I said, when everything comes full circle, right? When you talk about everything coming full circle, right? I also put out another podcast that DeForest Buckner's deal, how he got shipped out, could be very similar to Fred Warner this year. And if it's not Nick Bosa, maybe Caserio or someone else wants Fred Warner. We don't know how this is going to play out, guys. We really don't know how this is going to play out. What if Robert Saleh decides that he wants Fred Warner as part of the deal? I mean, instead of giving up draft cap, it could be a Joe Douglas power struggle where he's like, hey man, okay, so you want a leader, we don't have much of a leader here on defense, and yeah, we're gonna have to make a play somewhere. You never know what's gonna happen, but you never trade your foundational core players, homegrown talent, because it creates a toxic locker room dynamic. Let me tell you something, okay? People who don't know or not in the know or have never stepped foot inside that 49ers locker room, let me tell you something, because I still keep in touch with the players. Players talk. Okay, there are players and coaches who are still shook on the DeForest Buckner trade. Still shook, surprised, shocked, you name it. All right? If Fred Warner or Nick Bosa gets shipped out, you're, again, for the second consecutive offseason, you're shipping out your best defensive players out. What kind of message does that send to the rest of the locker room? Damn, the better we play, the more dispensable we like. They don't even care about us. We're just like whatever. I mean, I get it's a business, but at the end of the day, you want to keep your homegrown talent. That's why the scouting department does a very good job in finding these gems. They found Fred Warner in the 3rd round. Why would you want to give that up for a foundational player when you're not even 1 or 2 players away? I'd rather build through the draft, continue to build through the draft, don't hit the panic button, and go from there. All right? So I put out a tweet, and I said, it's getting a lot of feedback, by the way, mostly positive. I said, somebody needs to call 49ers John Lynch and tell him straight up, if he trades Nick Bosa or Fred Warner as part of any deal, he's out as the team's GM. Like, you're gone, bruh. We need to learn from past mistake. The impact of losing homegrown all-pro talent through trades, a la DeForest Buckner. All right? Now, if 49ers Twitter who disagrees, you're doing yourself a disservice, because let me break it down to you, okay? People are saying on Twitter, well, they're a top 5 defense without Nick Bosa. That may be true, statistically, but is Jason Verrett coming back? Is Kerry Hyder coming back? You don't have Bosa because he's been shipped out. So where's the pass rush? Right? So can you count on Arik Armstead to be the next man up? Forget the players. All right, let's just forget the players for a second, right? They lost Robert Saleh. You don't think there's going to be some type of drop off in production from a coaching standpoint? Not throwing shit at D'Amico Ryans. I think he's going to be a great defensive coordinator. I wrote a podcast on that earlier in the year. But with that being said, you don't think there's still going to be some kind of a drop off? Of course there is. Anytime there's a shakeup in the coaching staff, whether it's from high school to college to the pros, there's always going to be some continuity that's going to be missed. And if you play competitive sports, you guys know what I'm talking about. All right. So with Saleh gone to the New York Jets, that's going to shake up things. So can they sustain a top 5 defense without their signal caller there? The one calling the plays? I don't know. I don't think so. This team is not the same, right? And then people are arguing, well, they're definitely not a top D without Bosa, right? I think that's the argument here, right? Or that's my argument. They're definitely not a top D without defensive Nick Bosa, right? Because, again, where's the pass rush? Can you count on Arik Armstead to be the guy? And people are saying, oh, he's playing out of position. Okay, so if you kick him inside, you think he can take on double teams? I graded his every snap. I see the same player that I saw since he came out. He had a better year, credit to him, last year, was playing at an extremely high level, but he was still giving up run gap assignments. So that's not throwing shade. That's what the grades said. And we've seen it last year, so it is what it is. But getting back to the defensive line, you lose Nick Bosa, possibly even Kerry Hyder Jr. Where is that edge pressure going to come from? Because obviously they're not going to have it. So does Arik Armstead stay outside? Because again, they have to play musical chairs along the offensive line, or defensive line, excuse me. And then what happens with Javon Kinlaw? Is he going to show up in the pass rush? I hope so. He's shown flashes he could do it, but can he do it consistently? That remains to be seen. So to say that this team is going to be the same without Bosa, without Saleh, potentially without Jason Verrett, right? Let's look at the secondary. Only Jimmy Ward is signed beyond 2021. So when you're talking about a Super Bowl window, okay, if you don't want to agree that the Super Bowl window's still open or still closed, or whatever the case may be, how's the secondary going to look, bro? Richard Sherman's not there. Can you really count on Ahkello Witherspoon? Emmanuel Mosley? Because all mocks and all signs point that the team is looking for a cornerback, whether that be J.C. Horn, Caleb Farley, or Patrick Surtain Jr. there's a lot of moving parts. And again, if you look at it analytically, it just doesn't make sense for this deal to come into play. And for 49ers Twitter to come at me and be like, not everyone, there's only a few people, but I'm just saying, oh man, anytime you get a top 5 franchise quarterback, we're instant Super Bowl. No, you're not, bro. Like, what are you talking about? With what offensive line in front of you? We all saw and witnessed what happened in the Super Bowl, right? What happened? Pat Mahomes was playing with backup offensive tackles. Mitchell Schwartz wasn't there, and his blindside Eric Fisher wasn't there. So what happens? The Bucs defense just keyed in on Pat Mahomes, and he was the best quarterback in the freaking NFL. So you're telling me that Deshaun Watson can get it done without an offensive line? That's what you're saying. Furthermore, you're also telling me that you don't need Nick Bosa or any type of pass rushing presence in order to get it done. Forget about Saleh calling the plays. It just doesn't make sense. There's just too many missing parts here. Think about it logically, guys. Come on. And anybody who says otherwise, unfollow them. They don't know what they're talking about. Because if they did, they would have took this perspective and been like, you know what? That actually makes sense, bro. It's common sense. Would I like Deshaun Watson on the 49ers? Absolutely. But at the expense of getting rid of your foundational core players like Nick Bosa, Fred Warner? Absolutely not. Right? And again, from a leadership standpoint, how does that look? You get rid of the heart and soul of a guy like Fred Warner. A foundational core player like Nick Bosa. Who's going to be the team captain? You already traded away DeForest Buckner. Heck, you think Arik Armstead is going to be that guy? Consistently? Year in and year out? Can you really place that trust? That remains to be seen. I'm not saying he can be, or I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying we don't know. There's a lot of unknowns. And for anyone to say that Deshaun Watson would instantly make the 49ers a Super Bowl contender, I would be quick to argue that statement. Because let's look at the running game. You can plug any running back in that offense. But the 49ers haven't had a 1,000-yard rusher since 2014 when Frank Gore was there. Furthermore, can you trust Raheem Mostert? Can you trust Jeff Wilson to be the workhorse, reliable back for a full 16-game schedule? Forget a deep playoff run? There's a lot of missing parts here, bro. And then, take it a step further. Oh, okay, well, let's not get rid of those guys. Let's see if we can get rid of Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel. Okay, bro. Yeah, you want to get rid of those guys? Then who's your offensive weapons? Doesn't matter who your quarterback is. You're going to have Trent Taylor running slot routes, running gadget plays, running end arounds. How's that? How's that going for you, bro? It doesn't make sense. Football is a team game, and you got to look at it from both sides of the football in order to make the proper assessment and if trading for Deshaun Watson is a smart play when discussing this potential four-way trade. It's not. It's a wrap. I'm done. BEASTwriter, out.